It all started like a completely normal evening in the Griffin house. Peter was sitting on the couch flipping through channels when he noticed the TV kept switching back on its own to some blank gray screen, even though he was sure that channel didn't exist before. He called out to Lois, but she shouted from the kitchen that she was busy, so Peter walked closer to check it out. As he got nearer, he noticed something strange. Way in the back of that gray screen, there seemed to be a figure standing still, and it looked a lot like him. But the way it moved was off, almost like an old video lagging with little glitches. Peter tried to turn the TV off, but the remote stopped responding, and he could have sworn he heard someone quietly saying his name through the speakers. He called the kids, but the whole house suddenly felt empty, even though everyone had definitely been inside just a minute ago. Then the lights started flickering, not fully turning off, just twitching like something was messing with the electricity. From the hallway came slow, dragging footsteps, like someone was walking without lifting their feet properly. Peter stepped out to look and saw Stewie standing perfectly still, staring at him with this tense look on his face, like he was trying really hard not to say something. On the floor next to him was an old toy walkie-talkie he hadn't used in years. Peter asked what was going on, but Stewie quietly told him not to turn around, because whoever was behind him looked like Peter but wasn't Peter, just some strange version. Peter felt a chill run up his back, unsure if Stewie was joking or serious. He slowly turned anyway and saw a figure that definitely looked like him, but its movements were weird. Too sharp, too sudden, like frames were missing every time it shifted. The figure didn't talk, didn't make a sound, just tilted its head a little, almost like it was studying him. The lights flickered hard, and when they came back fully, the strange version of Peter was gone. Peter spun back to Stewie, but Stewie was already backing away, saying the house felt wrong, like something inside it had changed places without anyone noticing. Peter tried to calm him down, but then the TV in the living room switched on by itself again. This time it was showing a live view of an empty room in the house, and the camera was moving on its own, as if someone invisible was walking around holding it. In the corner of the screen, Peter saw a small figure that looked like Stewie, but it moved strangely, like the recording kept jumping forward and backward. The camera zoomed toward the little figure, and it whispered something unclear, almost like it was telling them to leave. The screen went black and the entire house lost power at the same time. Later that evening, neighbors walking by noticed the front door slightly open, no lights on, nobody answering. And yet, the TV inside still turned on by itself every now and then, showing empty rooms that should have been completely still, but weren't. The lost episode of Family Guy, Dead Air. The episode kicks off with a classic setup. The Griffin family is gathered in the living room for a night of TV, but the routine is shattered when the screen abruptly cuts to black, followed by an ear-splitting blast of white noise so intense that Brian drops his martini in shock. While Lois immediately nags Peter about unpaid cable bills, Peter reveals the stupidity behind the situation. He actually bought this television for $1 at the estate sale of a creepy old hermit who died under mysterious circumstances just last week. As the static clears, the image on the screen resolves into something deeply unsettling. It's a live feed of their own living room, but it's grainy, black and white, and shot from a high, impossible angle, like a security camera. Suddenly, the on-screen kitchen door opens, and Peter walks out. But it's not their Peter. This anti-Peter has hollow black voids for eyes and a frozen, unnaturally wide rictus grin. The entity on the screen slowly turns its head, looking directly out of the television and locking eyes with the real family. The real Peter tries to crack a joke to break the tension, but the screen monster slowly raises a hand and points a finger directly at Meg. In that exact second, the entire house plunges into darkness. When the lights flicker back on, the spot on the couch where Meg was sitting is empty. Brian notes the air smells like ozone, and Stewie is the first to spot the horror. Meg is now trapped inside the television. She's silently pounding on the glass from the other side, trapped in a warped, pulsating nightmare version of their home. Panic sets in. Peter decides to fix things with his trademark percussive maintenance and smashes his fist onto the top of the TV set. Instead of fixing it, the machine arcs with electricity and fires a bolt of energy that zaps Chris. In a flash of light, Chris vanishes from the room and reappears on the screen next to a terrified Meg. The remaining survivors, Peter, Lois, Stewie, and Brian, retreat and barricade themselves in the kitchen. Stewie quickly deduces what's happening. The TV is a portal to a dimension of eternal suffering that feeds on the family's idiocy, and Peter is acting as its primary battery. Their strategy session is interrupted by a terrifying sound from the other side of the kitchen door. A distorted, metallic voice croaks out a glitched, giggity goo, sounding like grinding gears. The door is ripped off its hinges, revealing a monstrosity. It's Quagmire, but transformed into a techno-horror abomination. His body is a tangled mass of rusted cables and wires, and replaced his head is an old CRT monitor broadcasting a giant, leering eye. The techno-Quagmire extends its wire tentacles toward Lois. Peter, offended that someone else is trying to grope his wife on a weeknight, grabs a toaster for self-defense. The family charges past the monster, making a break for the living room. On the main screen, they see the cartoon versions of Chris and Meg running through a labyrinth of VHS tapes, chased by the giant, black-eyed anti-Peter. Stewie barks out the plan. Brian needs to distract the Quagmire beast. Brian reluctantly starts a dry, pointless political debate with the monster, which confuses the creature just long enough for it to pause. Seizing the moment, Peter lets out a ridiculous battle cry and jams the plugged-in toaster directly into the center of the cursed TV screen. A massive explosion rocks the room. The glass shatters, and a vortex of blue energy spits Chris and Meg back onto the living room rug, covered in some kind of interdimensional ectoplasm. The techno-Quagmire behind them crumbles into a pile of harmless scrap metal. The lights stabilize. The family is reunited, though the kids are clearly traumatized. Peter wraps things up with a completely nonsensical moral about the dangers of buying used electronics. The episode ends on a lingering shot of the family sitting on the couch in total silence, just staring blankly at the empty wall where the TV used to be. The camera pulls back for an exterior shot of the Griffin house. For a split second, the entire house glitches out into static noise, and the audience hears the faint, sinister laugh of the black-eyed Peter before the screen cuts to black. The lost episode of Family Guy. The episode starts typically enough. Peter, Quagmire, Cleveland, and Joe are having a drink at the Drunken Clam. Peter is in the middle of one of his pointless ramblings, recounting the time he tried to replace his own blood with barbecue sauce to make himself more appealing to bears. Suddenly, mid-sentence, Joe's face vanishes for a split second. It just erases, leaving a smooth, blank beige oval with no eyes or mouth, before instantly snapping back to normal. None of the guys seem to notice except for Peter, who immediately chalks the hallucination up to cheap beer and keeps talking. The weirdness continues back at the Griffin house. During dinner, Lois is serving mashed potatoes, but the spoon in her hand begins to melt, dripping onto the table as a gray, smoking sludge. In the living room, Brian is reading a newspaper and watches in horror as all the letters on the page start to slide off, pooling into a black, pulsating puddle of ink on the rug that slowly begins to crawl toward his paw. Stewie is the only one who grasps the scale of the disaster. He runs around the house with various gadgets, shouting that the stability of their reality is compromised, and that the animation budget is drying up right before their eyes. The real nightmare begins when Chris enters the room. The right half of his body looks normal, but his left half is just a rough, twitching pencil sketch through which the wall behind him is visible. Chris complains that he feels kind of unfinished and that the part of him that hasn't been colored yet is itchy. While the family panics, trying to understand what's happening, the reality around them begins to disintegrate. The walls of the Griffin house lose their color, becoming transparent and revealing only a swirling void beyond. Meg starts to scream, but her cry is cut short when her mouth suddenly relocates to her forehead and her eyes slide down to her chin, twisting her face into a grotesque Picasso-like mask. Peter, trying to stay calm, suggests they all hide in the basement because it's always safe there during tornadoes and zombie Jew invasions. But when he opens the basement door, the stairs are gone. Instead, there's a gaping hole into a white void from which distorted, slowed-down voices of characters from early seasons can be heard begging for help. Stewie realizes their world isn't just collapsing, it's being erased. He gathers the entire family in the center of the living room, which is now just a few colored blobs floating in nothingness. He activates a device designed to stabilize their existence. The device triggers, and the world around them sharply reboots. The house, the furniture, and their bodies snap back to normal. Everyone looks whole again, though deeply shaken. Peter, as usual, breaks the silence with a stupid joke, suggesting they all just forget about it and watch some TV. The family sits on the couch. Everything seems normal. The camera slowly pulls back, showing them from behind, watching the working television. The episode ends with a static shot that lasts just a bit too long. We see the backs of the Griffins' heads. Suddenly, Lois turns her head to look at Peter. Her face is completely blank, a smooth beige oval without a single feature, exactly like Joe's face in the bar. She stares at her husband with this faceless visage, and a distorted, looping laugh of Peter's resonates from the TV before the screen abruptly cuts to black.